is James Arnold Taylor, voice of Obi-Wan Kenobi. Welcome to a more civilized podcast. This is the podcast you're looking for. You may not go about your business. Stay here, listen, and then move along.
Well, hey there, Star Wars fans. It's me, Kyler.
And it's me, Chris.
And I'm Ross.
Yep, sure is. And we have a special announcement to make before we get into our news. We are going to do an event for our podcast because we would like to meet some of you guys face to face. So we are going to, on Star Wars Day, Saturday, May 4th, 2019, we are going to meet at the Dragon's Keep in Spanish Fork.
Dragon's Keep being
a game store where you can buy cool Star Wars stuff and games. The games that we talked about, Armada, Legion, X-Wing, Imperial Assault, all those games, they're all there. Warhammer stuff, Star Wars comics, all kinds of stuff. It's your typical nerdy, awesome game hub, if you will. Nerd hub. So, it's Dragon's Keep in Spanish Fork. It's on Main Street. It's on the corner of, 2nd South and Main Street or something. Anyway, we'll have an address for you next time. We're only adequate. I'm sorry.
Well, check on the Facebook. That's where
on
we're
Facebook, we're going to make an event.
So.
And so more information to follow.
Actually, by the time you're listening to this, there probably will already be an event there.
Yep,
right.
That's very true.
Yep.
So if you're...
that is here local in Utah in the United States. Sorry if you're listening to this from Belgium. It's the best we can do.
But if you want to come, we'll
absolutely
totally be happy to see you guys.
Can come and watch a movie with us and eat some cheap pizza, and it'll be great.
Yep. It'll be tons of fun. So that's that. Please come out and see us. We'd love to see you guys. And we're going to poll you guys as well for which Star Wars movie to watch. So there's that.
Yep.
We'll hope to see you guys there. All right, Ross, take the news away.
The news. The newsiest news of the newses. So, first off, we have a little more regarding the Mandalorian TV series from, I always forget his stupid name. What's his name that was posting on? Jon Favreau. Jon Favreau is posting on Twitter and on Instagram. He likes to give us some little behind-the-scenes images. This week, he posted an image of Taika Waititi apparently voicing IG-88.
Which I do not know how I feel about that.
Well, I mean, obviously they're going to modulate it.
Well, right? But still.
Well, I doubt it's going to be Taika Waititi as we've known him in Thor and...
and that's what I'm picturing. I'm picturing Taika Waititi from, Ragnarok, only, with robot in his voice, and I'm just going, I don't think that's going to sound very threatening. From the most assassin droid in the galaxy. I don't know.
Hey man, we're gonna go kill those bounties over there. Want to come?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's not. I'm saying here though, if you had told me before I saw Thor Ragnarok that was what Korg was gonna sound like, I would have been if it was just been basically Korg is going to sound like Brit from Flight of the Conchords, and I would have been are you kidding me? That's absurd. And it was. That wasn't the Korg from the comics at all by any means, shape, or form. But he was an enjoyable character, so it's just a question of what are they going to do with IG-88 and whether or not he's even going to sound like he did.
Ragnarok is able to be funny and poke fun at itself, and it's got a different feel than... I don't know, I just think it would be weird to have... I'm sure
it'll be...
I don't know.
We're not going to have IG-80 Korg. I'm sure it'll be fine, right?
Yeah.
They'll modulate him. I mean, it'll be like Rook in Rebels. I mean, once you knew it was Warwick Davis, you could hear it. Yeah, but before that, you had no idea. Yeah. So, I mean, don't worry about it. It's just, he's doing it because it's Taika. And who knows?
Maybe Taika Waititi just has a vast range of voices. He'd be like Alan Tudyk, one of those where you're like, wait, he voiced who?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? I had no idea.
He does a chicken? Yeah.
That was a good role.
The poor guy. Next. This is going to be fun. So, I didn't get a chance to read the article on this one, but there is apparently rumors and or semi-confirmed, because I've been hearing it from a couple sources recently, that there is going to be an Ewok, probably Disney Plus series.
Might be getting their own series.
That's right. Rumored, might be.
So,
TBD all the way around.
Yeah, it's just weird.
Obviously, this would
as
not
well
be...
as the rumors about the Ewoks in the show. We'll find out more at Star Wars Celebration. Gosh, this doesn't really tell us much. Oh, so it is mostly a rumor, but it scares me that it's gained this much traction as a rumor. I hope that they don't necessarily do it.
I would wager that if they did it, it would just be something targeted definitively at kids, unlike Resistance, which is saying, hey, we want to scoop up the older kids in the audience, but we also want to aim this at a more adult audience as well. Hit that nice golden ground, Avatar The Last Airbender golden ground. But whereas this would be something more straight up just like DC superhero girls, where it's like, have you ever watched that? I picked it up thinking, like this is going to be one of those DC cartoons that it's fun for any ages and everything, and I picked it up and it's fun, but not for any ages. Like I watched it for a bit and I was like, this is not targeted
for my
at
girls,
adults
not for me
at all. Yeah, and that's what I picture Ewoks being, and just like, probably it'd be something, really cute, really well animated and everything.
And I'm sure the internet will hate it. Even because it's
Unless
not for them.
Unless they do it live action and it shows the brutal savagery of the Ewoks as they murder.
Well, and who knows too? I mean, on the one hand, I'd be like, it'd probably just be aimed at kids and wouldn't be that, wouldn't really be something that adults would get into. The opening scene
is Wicket's head like rising from the bottom of the screen and he's just covered in blood, and then like naturally. It pans down and a stormtrooper is like, screaming. Yeah. I'd watch that. An Ewok like horror movie.
No, I picture something more along the lines of My Little Pony, but with Ewoks.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be something that way.
My Little Pony is awesome.
If it was as well written as My Little Pony. So, listeners, I have 3 daughters. I've seen a lot. I have seen multiple lifetimes worth of My Little Pony at this point. And it's terribly clever. Even for, they put stuff in there for the adults that I'm like, my kids totally missed that. That's hilarious.
And I would wager if they did an Ewoks cartoon, they would put those tidbits in there because they know that there are going to be adults that are watching this with their kids. That it's...
Or they know there's going to be adults that'll watch it without their kids.
That too. Well, I mean, and I have watched My Little Pony without my kids. It's good. I haven't watched much of it, but it is solid. Like, there's a reason those bronies are out there.
Yeah.
It's a solidly made show, and it is one that is definitively not aimed at adults. Like, it's not like Superman in the animated series or Batman in the animated series, where it's like, very much adults would like this.
Batman in the animated series.
I don't say this very often, Chris, and please take this in the spirit it is given, but I'm judging you.
I'm seen it, man. It's pretty good.
Granted, I have not seen.
I was gonna say we've had this conversation here. Kylo and I know it's good.
There are some kids shows that, like, if I get home from work, my kids are watching it, I'm like, turn it off. It's too stupid. I can't be around it. Just turn it off.
There are some.
But My Little Pony, if that's on, I'm like, you can keep that on. That's good enough.
The first time I actually watched an entire My Little Pony episode was the time I'm talking about, where it's like I came home from work and my wife was like all looking up at me all shamefacedly from the couch, like, you caught me. And I was like, why do you look like that? And she's just like, I watched like 2 seasons of My Little Pony today alone. And I was just like, oh yeah, I've heard that's good. And she's like, wait, really? And I was like, yeah, I've heard that. And she's like, I'm going to watch an episode with you. And so and my boys were already asleep, and she made me sit down and watch an episode. And I was like, yeah, that was pretty solid.
My wife has watched My Little Pony on her own by herself, like, while the girls are at school, and she's like doing like sewing for her cosplay or something like that. But she also grew up as a kid where in the 80s, where the original My Little Pony TV show was one of her favorites. And so when she was like, wait, they're remaking this or whatever, so then she watched it out of nostalgia and was like, oh, this is actually like way better than the 80s stuff. I love this show on my own.
See, my wife was looking for a show for the boys to watch, and the boys were like, what about that one? And she was like, oh, My Little Pony? I guess, if you want to. Okay, so they watched it, and so the boys watched like 3 or 4 episodes, and we're like, okay, let's watch something else. And she was like, no, we're watching this.
So anyway, back to Star Wars.
Yeah, we'll save the rest of that discussion for our My Little Pony episode.
That's
yes,
right.
Yes, My Little Pony and Star Wars comparison.
Oh boy,
we'll make Ross binge watch all the episodes.
Let's do that episode just so we can punish Ross like that.
It wouldn't be a punishment. That's the thing. Yeah. It's good.
If it's as good as what you're saying it is, then it won't be a punishment.
Okay, so today we're going to talk about Redemption. Not Redemption, the Nebulan B class frigate fielded by the Rebels, but Redemption in general.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There's our deep lore tidbit
Redemption,
for the day.
by the way, is the Neb frigate, the medical frigate that Luke gets his hand fixed on. That's the name of that.
It's an appropriate name for a medical frigate.
Yeah. Exactly, yeah. Anyway, So, we're talking about specifically Kylo Ren, right? We obviously know Vader's story is one of redemption, but Kylo Ren is still, as of the recording of this episode, up in the air. We don't know what Episode 9 has in store for us. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. And this episode has been on our list of things to talk about for a while. We just had other things that had to get done before then.
Got bumped back because I really wanted to talk about Mary Sue's.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's funny because it's come up recently on Twitter and some of the other...
Yeah, it's a good time to record it. It worked out nice. It was kind of serendipitous, actually. Yeah. I mean, we can just jump right into it. Do we want to build up at all? I mean, my thinking is probably... Well, okay. I have two thoughts. I have what I think will happen and what I hope will happen. What I think will happen is that it will be ultimately a redemption story. He will either, maybe with or without sacrificing his life, in sort of a Vader-esque, the very last minute I changed and it cost me my life, but at least I've been redeemed. Or maybe he will have sort of a real change of heart or whatever, and he'll go live out the rest of his days happily ever after. I think he probably will get some sort of redemption. I hope that Disney has the cojones to let a villain be a villain. To let Kylo Ren be like, no, dang it, I have turned from the light. Screw all of you. No, I'm sticking in the dark.
Or even if he didn't do that, it could just be more of that, I am still pulled to the light, as has been a thing for him throughout the two movies
and I just consistently choose dark.
I still choose wrong. That happens.
Yeah. I think that would be more surprising, definitely. But also, I think, I don't know, maybe there is a chance that will happen, because, I mean, Episode 8 showed us that, hey, take all of your expectations and just throw them out. Maybe they will. I don't know. I don't necessarily have any, I don't know, I guess evidence-wise it's sort of 50-50. What do you guys think?
Well, so when I was going through school for, gaming and animation, one of the classes we were required to take was a storyboarding class. Of course, you have to know the elements of storytelling to go through the class. So one thing that the professor tried to drive home to us was that when you propose a problem, good writing, you should solve it, right? I mean, you can do that across, maybe your series or whatever. But if there's a problem proposed, it does need a solution for you to feel you have a catharsis at the end, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
So the very first thing we ever see of Kylo Ren is him talking to, I forget his
Max
name.
von Sydow. Yeah, I don't remember the character's name. But...
I played him in the Lego Star Wars version. I don't remember his name.
It's Lor Santeca.
Yes. Yeah, that's right, Lor. And he the first thing he says to him is, I remember
I was going to say Lars Porsena, and I was like, no, that's an ancient Etruscan king. That's wrong.
Yeah. But I mean, the first thing that Lor says to Kylo is talking about how he knew him before he was Kylo Ren, before he put on the mask when he was good. So that right at the very beginning, that proposes a problem. Right. This person is in a place who we've just established that Lor is a good guy because he's just been talking to Poe. They're talking about finding Luke, which we know from other movies we like Luke, right? And so Lor is now proposing a problem. He knows this kid was good and now he's bad. And now he's bad, right? So I feel like that's going to be the last thing that gets solved because it works like it's the like ABC CBA, yeah, it's that structure. So I'm betting that will be probably the pinnacle, the climax of.
But which way do you think it will go? Because whether he ultimately chooses to stay with the dark side or chooses to be redeemed, that's still a resolution to the problem, one way or the other. Which do you think it's going to be?
Well, I think he will be redeemed because him not being redeemed makes it a tragedy. Oh, and I don't think they would end on a tragedy. As awesome as it would be.
I would love it. I want it so much.
I don't think they will.
Now, I think that is definitely a legit point. Yeah, if this were just its own trilogy, I would say sure. Yeah, Star Wars can do that. Disney can do that. But when they've specifically been defining this 9-film arc as the Skywalker saga, and they've definitively said the Skywalker saga is done at the end of this movie.
Yeah.
Making it a tragedy at the very end would be some hefty.
Yeah, and that's why I don't think they'll be brave enough to do it. I do think he ultimately in the end will do it, even though it's not what I want. I think it would be a cooler story to have him just, flip everybody the double birds and be like, heck no, I'm staying bad forever. Okay, bye. It would be so cool. Or maybe even that he is killed or something at the end, but dies in his sin, to put it religiously, right? He dies committed to the dark side.
Right.
But now it's still resolved in a happy way that's not a tragedy, because at least
it would still
the big
be
bad
tragic,
has been,
but there would be happier elements too.
Yeah.
But
because see, I also think he's going to die because of the mirroring principle that I think we've talked about on the podcast. I know we've talked about it off the podcast, but where a lot of the points of this trilogy mirror those of previous trilogies. If he's going to be mirroring Vader like he wants to so much, he's got to probably die.
He's going to
somehow.
mirror Vader.
Yeah. So
even in death. Yeah, it could be.
I think I'm betting he'll turn, but it'll be
like Vader, where it's I sacrifice myself in a last act of good, and that redeems me, and now I'm dead.
Yep.
Which is the single last thing I want from this. Yeah. Like, there are a lot of things you could do here, but I was talking with my sister a while back, and I was like, well, really, there are only two things that I really, no matter what, do not want to see. And I mean, I'm not saying they couldn't be done well, but it's like, number one, I do not want Kylo Ren to die in some noble self-sacrifice. I don't want the redemption equals death trope. Because that's super overplayed to the point of being cliche. Like, it's getting into the point where it's like, we as a culture need to move on from this for a while because we're doing it too much. And so I don't want to see that, I'm redeemed and now I have to die with it, with my redemption. But at the same time, I also don't want to see I'm redeemed and everything is just fine now. Everything's just fine with it. Everyone's just fine with the horrific atrocities
genocide
that I committed. And now I'm one of the good guys. It's like, no, okay, like, that can happen in a long-form thing where there's like, Zuko can do that because Zuko never committed genocide.
Zuko from Avatar The Last Airbender.
From Avatar The Last Airbender. Because he never committed genocide. As far as his personal crimes went, they were relatively light.
Yeah.
And they had the time to give him, even though they pushed it back, and so they had less time than they originally planned, they still had some time to work through. We saw his personal arc, so we know why he's doing this, and we had some time to work the other characters through. Yes, he's on our side, and we can work together, and he's not as bad as we thought, etc., etc., etc. Whereas in one movie, there's no time to do that. And so if it's just leaving, I don't want it to be just left that easily. That's absurd.
How would you feel about this ending? Something similar to, like, because I agree, the last thing I want is also redeemed in death, like Vader. It was awesome in 1983 when Vader was redeemed. That was an awesome moment. But I don't want to see it again either. So what if he is redeemed, not in death, but is kind of like, I also can't... I'm an unwelcome citizen of the galaxy at this point.
Yeah.
So even though I'm redeemed, what if and he goes and, like, lives his life as a hermit or something like that?
I don't want that. I don't want the hermit. I don't want him disappearing off to the unknown territories or any of that. If he is redeemed, I want him redeemed and in prison. I want him serving time. I want him to get the full burden of everything he's done placed upon him.
What if he's redeemed in death, but as an execution that, like, look, you may have been redeemed. However, you need to pay for your crimes. We're going to execute you.
That would be...
That's way dark for
that would be
Star Wars and Disney.
That
would be so cool.
It would be hard to make that into a satisfactory resolution to the 9, but, like, if it... And I don't think this would work as a satisfactory resolution necessarily, but it would be different. Like, very few, very, very, very few stories go to the trouble of going like, yes, I'm going to turn to the light side now. I'm going to be one of the good guys, and the good guys are, okay, that means you are going to serve 10 consecutive life sentences for the things you've done, and them go, yep, I kind of figured that was part of what was, like, yeah, I deserve it. Like, I will do whatever time you put on me because I deserve it, and I am actually
that would be
realistically
really cool
contrite. Like, that's actual, repentance, again, to put it religiously. And that, like, I want a sincere development if we're going to redeem him, not just I turned to the good side and now I'm one of the good guys. You remember those Star Wars Infinities comics I told you about that were just so awful? that there was one of the versions of those. I don't know why I did this to myself, but I went through and I read all three, the New Hope, Infinity's alternate reality, The Empire Strikes Back, and The Return of the Jedi. Wow. And that's basically how Return of the Jedi ends, is Palpatine gets away, but Vader did turn to the good side to save his kids. And like one of the last shots you get is them like talking about, well, we need to hunt down Palpatine for the good of the galaxy, we're going to have to figure out and then you get a voice from off screen saying something along the lines of just like, well, I know a lot of the tricks he's going to use and I'll be able to do it. And then you get this shot of Vader walking in through the doorway, only his armor is now completely blindingly white. And it's so dumb. It's so and it was just this like, Vader has committed genocide.
Yep.
Vader has murdered children with his own hands. Yep. Repeatedly, presumably. It's like, just what we see in the movies alone is enough to say, no, you don't get, if you are going to be redeemed, you do not get to walk free.
Yeah.
That is not justice. And so, no, putting on some white armor because now I'm one of the good guys, it's just like, no, that's so dumb. That's so dumb.
Yeah. So it sounds like to you, Chris, it seems like the only plausible option is to have him just die committed to the dark side.
I've got three. I've got three plausible things that I think. Okay, so the first one is, this is a redemption story. Kylo is going to be redeemed in some shape, in some manner. Maybe he dies redemptively, whatever. Partly because actually I'm going to come back to the redemption. So the second one is he stays evil. I feel like this in some ways is very likely because we've done the redemption. Like you were saying, it's like we did this with Vader. We've mirrored Vader enough, but I think part of the point of episode 8 is, yes, we've been mirroring, and now we're potentially done with most of the mirroring. Like the point is, we're stepping away and we're entering new territory. I don't know how much, like I'm sure there will still be mirroring done, but I think episode 8 left us in a point where anything can go, and so he could die, he could stay in the dark side, and that feels like, in a lot of ways, what most people are expecting. When I look online, at least, I see a lot of people talking about, I saw an article the other day that was, Star Wars now has the chance to show us what would have happened if Darth Vader didn't choose right. It's basically like, that's where we're at, is he has made the opposite choice of Vader. He is going to stay on the dark side and ride that through to its natural conclusion. And I think, that's really plausible. Like, that they could just keep him a bad guy. He gets defeated at the end, which, ironically, despite that being the most, once upon a time, be the most cliche ending, for Star Wars would actually be very unusual. Like, what would be for any other action movie out there, the most obvious and predictable ending, is actually unusual for Star Wars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As long as he doesn't die a Disney villain death like Krennic did.
Yeah.
But...
Well, and you can't do that with Kylo. He's
you
way
could,
too forefront.
It would not work. But
yeah.
If Kylo's going to die, he has to be killed, most likely by Rey. And
especially for all
I don't
the
think it's going to happen, though. I actually do, partly because everybody's expecting it, really, at this point. Like, so many people are like, yeah, that's probably what they're going to do because we're breaking away from that. And I'm like, the fact that so many of you are saying this leads me to suspect that if they keep on the way they've been going, that's not what they're going to do.
It'd be really cool, though, if he does redeem himself, but then Rey is like, glad you're redeemed, buddy. Still got to pay for your crimes. And then she kills him. That'd be awesome.
Well, again, the thing with that is,
Disney, but
if we're going to treat this in any sort of realistic way, that's not Rey's call to make.
Right.
Yeah.
He has to go on trials, tribunal, and I really doubt she's going to be the one handed the executioner's lightsaber or whatever.
Yeah.
But so a lot of people expecting that, and I could see that from, the way we've setting this up, than him choosing to be bad. And I like the idea of showing a conflicted bad guy who chooses, despite all his conflict, to remain evil.
Yeah. Because
we don't see a lot of that in media in general, actually, but especially in Star Wars, that's breaking really new ground.
Yeah.
But there are some things with that. One is, this is Star Wars, and redemption is... The idea that redemption is always an option is kind of an ever-present idea throughout Star Wars, and I got no bones with that, And so it's always, that's possible. They might want it to have that uplifting ending, especially because, like we said, it's the last in the 9-film cycle.
Yeah.
And I could see ending film 6 that way, but ending film 9 is doable. Like, you could write it, but it's going to be harder. But the thing that really gets me on the side of no, he needs to be redeemed, or at least not, die in his sin, so to speak, is the meta narrative that they've had going throughout Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, where this is not just a movie about these people in their Star Wars among the stars. This is also a movie about the Star Wars saga, and the people who are making the Star Wars saga, and the people who are watching the Star Wars saga. Mm-hmm. And with Kylo Ren basically being the poster boy for the bad side of Star Wars fandom, for the angry fans who are lashing out at people, for the racists, for the sexists, for all the bigots and all of this, for anything that gets lumped into that through the way he behaves. I don't want a narrative that tells me that the only way to deal with those people is to kill them.
Yeah. Now, so that was the Kylo that we got in Last Jedi. Does that hold true for Force Awakens as well?
Absolutely, yeah. Because Force Awakens is where we first start seeing Rey as the good fangirl, like the one who has all the same paraphernalia. She's cosplaying. She's got the helmet that she wears and she plays with. She knows all the people. She knows the stories, and he does too. He's very much trying to live up to the stories he grew up with. He just chose a darker side of it. He's doing it in a very bad way, and so that's been throughout here going on, and so and that's for me. I get really conflicted when you get into the meta narrative where it's like, because there are some there are plenty of Star Wars fans that are just behave atrociously, but I also get uncomfortable because I feel like there are way too many people in our country and this world in general with a combative, the only way to deal with them is we gotta nuke it from orbit. Like, you cannot deal with these people. They can't be redeemed. Like, the whole, there's a huge class of people who totally understandably are gonna look at someone who is just openly hostilely like racist and go, yep, can't deal with these people. You just have to treat them like this is a war and they are the enemy. And for me, I'm always like, no, that's never going to work, because at this point, the people who have clung to that for this long have done so in the face of any opposition that you're going to throw at them, and any more opposition you throw at them is just confirming in their heads that they are being persecuted.
Right.
Like, you cannot, you might be able to scare some people into hiding that behavior at this point, but you will not rid the world of that behavior by being combative. The only way to do that is to find common human ground and slowly, painstakingly over a great course. Painfully over a great deal of time, gradually pull them into the light, to try and help them see that they're horribly wrong. But if you treat it as a war, the only way to get rid of people who view that way is literal genocide. Like, you literally have to execute all of them. That's the only way to get rid of it. And I don't want Star Wars, that has set up this meta narrative of the bad fans and the good fans, to say, well, the only way to deal with the bad fans is to kick them out, is to kill them, is to exile them, to do any of that. Because I'm just like, that's not, there are way too many people thinking that way in the world right now. And I don't want, especially Star Wars, to be giving that narrative to the world. So
do you think they would go that route, though?
They might.
Is that option 2 of your 3?
Yeah, that's option 2.
Okay.
So, the option 1 was they all get, he's the bad guy, he stays the bad guy, which narratively has some really appealing aspects to it. And definitely, there is definitely set up to say that could happen.
That's what I hope, just because it would be an interesting story to see unfold.
Yeah. But meta-narratively is kind of grim and unsettling in some ways, and not something that I would feel comfortable endorsing. Because, there are always going to be people that if you get in this escalating thing where it's like, oh, I don't want to be the combative one, but they are legit being combative. Like, you have to deal with people who are, if they've decided you're at war, you might be at war, but there's also way too many people who are looking at people who are living next door relatively peacefully and being horrible and with a lot of horrible views, and saying, oh, well, they have those views, and these people over here have those views, and they're at war with us, therefore these people over here also are at war with us. And it's like, no. That's not how it works. Just because they share the same views as people who have declared war on you doesn't mean that they are also at war with you. It's
For example, from history, World War II, Hitler in Germany and Francisco Franco in Spain, both of them fascists, both of them using very similar tactics on their people, espousing similar ideas. Spain stays out of the war, everybody leaves them alone. Hitler and the Allies.
Yeah.
Both decide to leave Spain alone because they're technically not a part of the war. Even though they have similar ideas to Hitler, the Allies still leave them alone because they're neutral. Anyway, that's just popped into my head.
Well, and I mean, like, Stalin ended up bedfellows as well, and Stalin was every bit as bad as Hitler was, possibly worse.
And just going by body count, he's twice as bad.
That's the low estimate.
Yeah.
That's the bare minimum. That's the amount we can officially confirm.
Yeah.
Anyway. But yeah, it's like, on the one hand, it's scary for a lot of people. I get that, where it's just like, well, but what if they are that? But that's the price of civilization. That's the price of being decent in general is, well, yeah, other people might be horrible, but I cannot be preemptively horrible just in case they will be.
Right.
And
yeah, that's literally the First Order's MO.
Yeah. Now, to be fair, Kylo Ren is well beyond any point. Within the logic of this world, Kylo Ren deserves every bit of it. He deserves to be warred upon, and the galaxy
needs to be rid of him. Yeah.
However, within that narrative, conflating what he is doing with what they are doing is dicey. It's like, yeah, there are, saying that the Bat fans are like him is behavior-wise, yeah, absolutely. Attitude, the complexes going on underneath that stupid helmet of his, there's very similar things, but
I'll tell you what's going on underneath that stupid helmet of his. Some fantastic hair.
That's true. Lovingly feathered.
I threw Chris off.
Oh yeah, I got thinking about Kylo Ren's lovingly feathered hair.
That's pretty glorious, man.
Yeah, exactly.
You just want to run your fingers through it.
But yeah, it's the Minority Report philosophical problem. It's like, can you really justify punishing people for something they will have done but have not yet done? And really, no, especially when we don't have actual precognitive people. It's like, no, you cannot look at these people and say, well, their behavior is similar, so therefore they will escalate to Kylo Ren, and therefore we need to treat them the same way. That's scary territory. That's where you become the fascist.
Yeah.
Long story short, the meta-narrative makes me uncomfortable with the prospect of just killing Kylo Ren off. Which brings me to my third option, that I feel, looking at that, because I know that these filmmakers are very aware of the meta-narrative that they're crafting, and so I feel like we have potential for this third option of peaceful armistice, and we find some third solution. And I'm not sure where they could go with that would be satisfactory, but I'm sure they could. Like, there's enough area there that I can kind of poke my imagination into to go, yeah, I feel like if I sat with this idea long enough, I could come up with a satisfactory conclusion that is neither Kylo gets redeemed, nor Kylo dies. Yeah, sorry, man. You got to die for the sake of this film.
That's fine.
We'll truck
if
on.
It's anything like Last Jedi, I'm not sure I want to live to see it.
Yeah. But yeah, so I'm like, especially because there are some signs in the narrative that point towards the idea of breaking away from the redemption or death cycle here.
So you're saying maybe that there's, and this would be cool to just watch, but like, so some big pitched battle, the Republic beats the First Order, they can't overcome them, but they sort of beat them back to their home turf in the unknown regions and just say, stay there.
Maybe not even that far. I don't know. So in the original expanded universe, Timothy Zahn's The Hand of Thrawn duology ended, and this was, it was set like 30 years, I think
it was 30. Yeah.
So in the area we're in right now, after the original movies, and it ended with a peace treaty between the remnants of the Empire, because it still had quite a few planets under its control, and the New Republic, and basically said, look, there can be more than one nation within the galaxy, was the idea. And of course, the Empire had evolved to enough of a degree. It was kind of late Soviet Union versus early Soviet Union, where early Soviet Union under Lenin a bit, somewhat, and then especially under Stalin, just horrific. No, this government needs to be obliterated from the face of the earth because it is atrocious. But late Soviet Union, you gradually get more and more humane people taking over and going, oh, we
step back from.
We need to walk this back. Yeah, Khrushchev and the others going, okay, this has been bad, and we're going to acknowledge like more and more of what had happened coming out public, and the government going, yeah, we are stopping this, we are getting rid of this. Not to say that late era Soviet Union was exactly a bastion of human rights or anything,
but it was better than.
But
what
in
it had
comparison,
been.
yeah, it's like the prospect of taking 1980 Soviet Union and going, you know what, this whole Cold War thing is stupid. Let's just make peace here, is less onerous, less terrible than that would not have been a moral option in the 1940s. But so the empire had softened somewhat. It was under the command of Admiral Palion. I always forget how to.
Gilead Palion.
Yeah, Palion. And he basically came to this point where he's like, let's just stop this. Like, realistically, we're not going to gain back what we once had, and we shouldn't even be trying. This is horrible. And the New Republic going, yeah, it would be nice to not be at war anymore. And basically saying we're just two different nations. We can have trade between one another. We're not going to lock our borders. Like, the Empire will allow people to leave and go live in the New Republic if they would prefer. And the New Republic will allow people within their borders the same privilege of choosing whether or not they would rather be in the more stable but less freedoms Empire. And at the time when I was reading this as like a 14-year-old or something, I was like, you can't do that. It's the freaking Empire. They're the bad guys, I could not stomach that. I did not like that ending. And over time, as I got older, I realized that's actually the most realistic ending they could ever have brought that to. Because what are you going to do? Well, you can't wipe out the entire empire, and if it does, it's going to take another. That the whole reason they did this is because even if we tried to wipe out the empire, it would take a vast expenditure of resources, lives, and time that is just at
that point not worth
now.
it.
Yeah, at this point, looking at the what we'd have to expend to wipe this out, it is not worth that. We would be committing grievous sins against our people, basically, and so. Obviously, the First Order ain't at that spot. Resistance does kind of point to the fact that there are people within the First Order who do feel that maybe the First Order has some points here.
No, just in the general populace.
Yeah, in the populace, and then who are siding with. Yeah. And obviously, the First Order is they're very Soviet actually in their methods. Is they are putting up these huge amounts of propaganda, hiding their actual behaviors from the populace in general, and so the First Order at this point is, and I can't even picture within a year it coming around to a point where it's like, yeah, we can let them keep going, but maybe, I don't know.
Well, that's the thing is between 8 and 9, there's only 1 year.
Yeah, and 1 year is not a lot of time.
That's not a lot of time.
But I could still see that. I could still see them trying to go, like, let us pull back and stop doing the war thing and, like, try and find a civil way to address the civil rights issues within the First Order. And maybe Kylo would be receptive enough to be like, yeah, you know what? There's a lot of really horrible things going on here. And maybe I can still be on the dark side and not do that. I don't know. And, it gets into this weird area where I'm like, I don't know if I want that, because I like the dark side to be the dark side. And that's something that I have never wanted from Star Wars. I've always been afraid, like for decades, I've been afraid that someone would try and do this and go, oh, the dark side isn't really evil. It's just different. It's like, no, the dark side is the dark side for a reason. Yeah. And we shouldn't abandon the very simple framework of light side and dark side and good and bad. However, at the same time, there are genuinely horrible people who, you could call evil. They are on the dark side, who nevertheless manage to scrape together some sort of civility and live within our society and not be, serial killers and or, abusers of this, that, and the other. There are people who are just awful, but rein it in somewhat for the sake of civilization. And so I kind of like the idea of someone going, hey, look, just because you're on the dark side, I know you're evil and all, but can we still be civil toward each other? Can we find a way? Because that's one of the most difficult things in civilization is it all starts falling apart as soon as you've got people that are like, whoop, they are evil, therefore we have to destroy them because you cannot deal with them. And it's like, no, I don't care if you perceive them as evil. You still have to try that. And because, that's demonizing your opponents is the basic foundation of populism. It's like that's what populists do is, they're evil. That's what Hitler did with the Jews. And just because you're looking at the racist bigots and going, look, they're racist bigots, obviously they're evil, doesn't mean that but that when it comes to, if that escalates, you will be justified. Like, yeah, they could be demonstrably quote unquote evil, because they are racist bigots who espouse all sorts of horrible things. But if you go too far in how you're treating them because of that, you're going to be just as bad. It's the Shadar Logoth and the Dark One setup. Just because you're fighting evil doesn't make you good. It's one of my favorite quotes of all time is the first season of Daredevil. It's another man's evil does not make you good. Mm-hmm. And I would love for Star Wars to kind of bring this in and go, look, they're awful, but we can find a third solution here. And especially with the whole balance of the Force thing that they've been setting up in the last two movies, where the whole explanation for why Rey just kind of jumped in, aside from her being a fangirl who already knew about all this stuff, part of it is that the Force is raising her up as a balance to Kylo Ren because the Force is now balanced. And, it's like that's what Luke had to die because... yeah, Snoke died and they were balanced, and one is going out, one is coming in. That's kind of the idea we're setting up here. And if that balance was kind of the point of the prophecy that we were given in the prequels, if bringing it to this state was something desirable that we were supposed to set up, then how can we have a good solution to that ends with we eradicate the bad guys? Even if the eradication of the bad guys is the bad guys being redeemed and becoming good guys. That's not balance.
Right.
Like we're not looking for Western theologies of good and evil here. We're looking, well, and even in Western theology, it's this, there must be opposition in all things is in Christianity left and right. Like the attitude that good balances evil is not just an Eastern theology or philosophy sort of thing.
Worldwide.
And so I would love for Star Wars to manage some sort of more nuanced approach to just because they're evil doesn't mean we should eradicate them, and find a way for, because Rey and Kylo have already demonstrated that they can get along quite well, and if we can just find a way for
the larger political systems to get along well,
exactly, and if we can expand that outward some more, even though we don't agree with Kylo Ren and he is on the dark side, and that is a problem that Rey will never stop hounding him about because the dark side is bad. That doesn't mean we can't bring some sort of closure to the Star Wars that are going on and work at that from a different angle than just, it's kill or be killed. That's hard. It would be hard to make that fulfilling to a mass audience, especially within the framework of something that's already got this light side and dark side, good versus evil. We defeat the bad guys and we're heroes. Oh, but I would love to see it. I would love to see it pulled off. And there's definitely some hints with that balance framework that they set up to indicate that maybe that is the only way to end this.
But I'm not
you should
sure.
have had Chris go last.
Well, no, there's still some other things I want to ask about in just a second. How would you make that fulfilling, Chris?
Oh God, I don't know.
This is actually kind of what I wanted to move on to next, because so we talked earlier about how Kylo's story is mirroring Vader's.
Yeah.
Right? Now, but there was one particular difference in Vader's redemption story that we can't have in this new set. In Return of the Jedi, Vader's actual last push towards the light side was seeing his master torturing his son.
Yep.
Right? Now, first of all, Kylo doesn't have a son.
Reylo have a love child together.
Over this next year.
Yeah, and that turns Kylo to the good side.
Kylo has people he cares about.
But hold on, let me because then we're not quite finished with the situation. So Kylo doesn't have a son to defend. He also doesn't have a master to do the torturing. Yeah. He is on his own. He's on the top of his,
and that's part of why I say that
food chain.
Yeah, that's part of why I say that the mirroring portion of this may be more or less finished, at least within the mirroring Kylo Ren to Darth Vader, because the end of Return of the Jedi, the end of The Last Jedi caught us up to Vader at the end of Return of the Jedi. Kylo did the conflict. He did the kill my master instead of killing the person he wants me to kill that I kind of have a thing for here. Little different than Vader's reasonings, thankfully.
But that he cares for.
But there is an emotional connection
to
here, yeah. He chose not to kill Rey, even though that's what his master expected of him. He chose to kill his master instead, and then he stepped away from the Vader mirroring because again, his problem was that he wanted to be Vader, and Snoke kept telling him, be more Vader, and the Snoke's problem that he didn't realize is Kylo Ren is not Vader. So Kylo Ren has now completed his Vader mirroring. He got to the end of Return of the Jedi, and he decided, I'm not going to be Vader.
Yeah, choose his own adventure went a different way.
Exactly. He did choose to kill his master and not kill the person on the good side that he has some feelings for. And then he went, okay, but I'm going to still be bad and please join me.
You know what? Would he have killed her, do you think? Had that actually, the conversation kind of felt like they were at odds then. Do you think had the lightsaber not exploded and everyone got knocked out for a minute, do you think he would have gone on to kill her?
Hard to say. I don't think he would have killed her. I think he might have imprisoned her and tried to talk her into joining him later.
I feel like he would have cut her down. Imprisonment and potentially even eventually escalating to torture and horror and who knows what, because he is choosing to stay on the dark side. But
I think initially he would have had hope that he could change her mind, that he could turn her heart.
Because the fact that he's reaching out to her at all is very much like he chose to save her. He does care about her. And we've kind of discussed before that even though the dark side turns you evil, it does not preclude positive emotions.
And I'll say this too, going back to your thing about, Kylo doesn't have necessarily the same elements at play, right? There's no master left to torture those he cares about. But Kylo does have people that he cares about. He does care about his mom, Leia, who in canon is still alive, though Carrie Fisher is sadly no longer with us, that's a travesty right there.
Yeah,
and Rey as well. But Kylo is in the position to be the master hurting those he loves, which then may make him change his mind.
Mm-hmm.
If he then sees that through his actions, blah, 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 bad thing happens, more inner conflict that maybe does push him over the edge into deciding, hey, maybe I need to cut this out and go to the good side.
That could see, and that's the thing, is that's why Episode 8 left us so open to possibilities, is because Episode 7 set us up with, we are mirroring the originals. Episode 8 said, yeah, we are. Oh, hey, look at this rug you're standing on. Yoink! Nope, we're done.
Yeah,
we're done with that. And now Episode 9 is, wow, that really leaves us open to anything goes.
Well, and I feel really that we are keeping with our mirroring theme. We really are basically in 1981 right now, having just watched Empire Strikes Back, going, there's compelling evidence to say that Vader is going to murder Luke, Luke is going to join the dark side. There is compelling evidence that says Luke is going to win over his father and redeem him and bring him to the light side. There's a good argument to be made for either case in 1981.
Yep.
And I feel like that's kind of where we're at here, because hearing both of you discuss, thinking of my own thoughts about the series and whatever, there's a really compelling case to be made either way this goes, whether he stays dark or whether he's redeemed.
Or a third option.
Or a third option, although I think that's probably less likely, just given Disney being Disney.
I honestly, I give it, I find that one more likely than Redemption.
Really?
Yeah, personally. And obviously I lean towards that one, but
yeah, because I don't feel like it fits with the established story structure.
That's the hard thing, is to write a story with that gray of an ending, and make it still feel like Star Wars.
Yeah.
Well, but I mean, not even Star Wars aside. I mean, it is still the 3-act structure, right? We are getting to the end of Kylo's Act 2 with the end of Last Jedi. I feel like he was hitting that dark night of the soul. He's taking the steps that he thinks he needs to reach his end, right? So this is his, we called it the naive attempt in our film class. This is him thinking he knows how to solve the problem, but then he's going to get knocked back down, right?
So the thinking he knows how to solve the problem is taking Snoke's place.
Right. Becoming what his grandfather that he idolizes should have been.
And then he realizes running an entire government is a lot harder than it looks, guys.
First, Kylo's not the hero here. So he doesn't necessarily have to follow the hero's journey. I mean, no hero has to follow the hero's journey. They will usually reflect it in some form or another. But
it does make it less likely that he's
But
gonna...
it gives you a little more freedom that it's like,
Yeah.
this isn't necessarily the hero's journey we're going through here. This is a villain's journey we're going through here. It's kind of this reverse version. But nevertheless, so he has reached, as far as any good guy looking at it goes, a low point. He had repeated opportunities to turn good. He had this connection with someone new that proved that he can. The light side is right there. It's not just his parents and his uncle and all these other people reaching for him. That the girl can still love him. He can be the hero. And he went, nope, no, that's not what I want. And so that's a very low point. But it's all a matter of what you want to write him here. Like, it's the main thing that this needs in order to make it work is you still have to make it work as a Star Wars movie in particular, is you still need to have a grand climax worthy of the Skywalker saga and everything. And especially because you have the First Order being so evil already, and we've only got a year between them, you need a way to symbolically excise the really bad elements from the First Order. Like, say, if you had some particularly rabid leader who was fighting for control over the First Order and could then be killed off, symbolically defeating that aspect of the First Order.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's almost like that's been set up already, too.
But see, the thing is that we know...
Wait, so Hux is going to kill Kylo?
Yes, this is plot twist. Yeah. Hux is the one we've been building to his redemption all along.
The thing is I feel like we know Kylo too well.
He talks about his daddy issues.
Yeah. We know Kylo too well to just relegate him to the villain of Rey's story, right?
Yeah.
He has his own arc that he's going
Very
through.
much.
We know him a lot better than we ever knew Vader.
Yep.
Well, I guess with the exception of the prequels.
Yeah, before we had the prequels.
Yeah, we're talking about the original trilogy.
Right.
For Vader. Yeah, we don't know very much about him.
Yeah. And so, I mean, they've set him up too much as a character to...
I'll give Ross that point. Yeah, he's too present in the story. Like, yeah, we see too much behind the curtain with him.
We know what's going on in his head.
Because you're right, though, like with Vader. Like, Vader in Episode 4 is literally the embodiment of the big bad. Mm-hmm. That's all he is there. Mm-hmm. In Episode 5... we get like a little peek behind the curtain on Bespin in the carbon freezing chamber as they're dueling and Vader's talking to him.
Right.
We get just a little peek at what's behind there. And then when Luke...
Well, and even also the I am your father, we can rule the galaxy's father and son.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, is that whole duel between them from start to finish. We get a little peek where Vader's going, here's a little bit of what's going on with me. But we're still not sure, like, what's deception, what isn't, and then in Episode 6, we get the whole elevator scene on Endor, where he's getting prepared to take him to the Emperor, and that's when kind of the curtain is thrown back and we see, some exposition on what Vader is actually thinking. But we've gotten a lot of that already, like you're saying with Kylo. A lot of it in Episode 7, and then even more in Episode 8. So I agree. We know him much better for him to be just
for all of.
Well, I'm not saying he's just a villain. I'm saying he doesn't have to follow that hero formula.
I'd agree with that.
But what formula is he following then?
He's not following a very familiar formula. That's kind of
he's the new recipe.
Yeah, that's the thing.
He's got 12.
Most of the most popular formulas that you would mirror don't go for gray endings. We don't try and and so it would be going further afield into. I'm trying to think of a good example of this in mass media, at least something that I could reference people to, but it's tough.
Well, and this is why I think a third option is probably not going to happen, because we as human beings, whether we will admit it or not, we kind of like our world to be a little black and white. Mm-hmm. We like to see the good guys serve justice in the end. We like the bad guys to eat that justice, to the last crumb. We like the bad guys to get punished, the good guys to have a happy ending. That's what we find satisfying. And Disney, I think, is going to want to give us a satisfying ending, especially with, and this we have to kind of step out of the Star Wars canon narrative into the Disney is still a business. With the controversial reception of Last Jedi, and then the...
See, but you got to back up there and remember, Last Jedi is only controversially accepted by a very vocal but small portion of the fandom.
But people still talk about it, and even and people will say that Rogue One that Solo bombed because of Last Jedi or whatever. I think there's enough controversy surrounding it, and whether or not it's actually a lot of people or just a really vocal minority, because the world is full of super vocal minorities, I think Disney would want to hedge their bets as a business and say, let's give a really feel-good, satisfying ending, one way or the other, a black and white ending rather than something gray, because that will have a greater appeal.
I don't think that... See, the thing for me is that we're looking at gray endings as, they can't have that feel-good bang of a black and white ending. And while to a small degree that is kind of true, at the same time, I don't accept that. You know, it's like, I don't accept that what, from my perspective, is a clearly more moral approach to ending something. Like, just, if this were a real world scenario, trying to bring an end to the fighting is far better than simply, let's get rid of the bad guys.
Right.
And so, I can't accept that notion that we can't end something and still have it being satisfying. And that's why I feel like, I mean, what seems like a grander ending to the Skywalker saga? One, are the conflicted Skywalker of this Skywalker saga goes, oh, all right, I'll be a good guy again, which we've already seen once. The conflicted Skywalker of this section of the Skywalker saga goes, nope, never, and gets killed, despite the fact that Ghost Luke is trying to convince him to be better, and the good guy Rey is trying to convince him to be better. Everyone's trying to convince him to be better, and he goes, nope, and that's a fulfilling ending to the Skywalkers. Or the Skywalker saga literally ends with, we will bring an end to the Star Wars. Like, this is literally called Star Wars. Everything has been about war throughout all this, and we stop the wars and end in a period of relative, if complicated, peace. That seems like a far grander conclusion to the Skywalker saga to me.
I agree. That definitely is the grander overall ending. But you have to kind of point people in that direction.
Yes, and that is tricky, but you've also got room.
They do have one more movie to do it in, but I feel like for something for that big, to wrap up 9 movies with a we're going to end all war type of idea, you would have to have been planting those seeds in the 2 movies we have already for the sequel, and I don't think those are there.
Speaking of mirroring, though, you look at Episode 1. Episode 1 starts with the Old Republic, which has been largely at peace for 1,000 years.
Right.
Which is not something to shake a fist at.
Right, and so to start the series with a occasionally complicated peace, but a peace nonetheless. I mean, Naboo was a complicated situation, but the peace prevailed for another 10 years anyway. To end it that way, to say, hey, we might not have things perfect, but here's something we can all live with, that could be.
And I'm also going to point to some things.
I have no idea, listener. If you can't tell, I keep going back and forth because I have no idea.
And like I said, I feel like this is very possible. It's what I want from it, and that probably pushes me more towards seeing it as possible than necessarily I would otherwise. But I still see the others as possible. It's just that from a writing perspective, with what they have set up in the others, I don't see redemption or death being entirely fulfilling. Now, just because I can't see it doesn't mean they can't pull it off. Because I also have trouble seeing how they're going to make this gray ending, but I can imagine more about how to make the gray ending fulfilling than for the other options. And I do feel like there's plenty of things that they've been setting up that do point towards this is where we're going. I mean, not just that our main hero has an actual somewhat functioning relationship with our main villain, but that also our other main hero, the Luke Skywalker, basically ended the last one saying, I'm not going to give up on you. I will continue interacting with you. Like, to end Kylo evil after that, that's a hard sell.
I just had an idea. Luke could be the ultimate troll, just sitting there as a Force Ghost, constantly pestering Kylo Ren.
I had the exact same thought, but actually, no, think about it.
Yeah.
Luke's Force Ghost, instead of him guiding Rey,
could turn his attention.
His attention is clearly more prominently on Kylo. He literally died saying, "See you around, kid." Like, that's the last thing we heard Luke say was that he was going to see Kylo later. Like,
yeah.
Well, and because that would be an interesting twist, I think, as well, right? Because it's always Obi-Wan showing up to Luke, having the good guy.
Well, and especially because this is what Luke fled from. That's like he failed Kylo, and it broke him. And what he should have done was go back and go, I need to fix this. But he looked at it as a thing that he had failed. You reminded me of another
redemption thing I had, or that I was going to bring up. I'm springing on you guys.
Cool, bring it.
Luke's own redemption in Episode 9. That I think we will absolutely see that. I think Luke will show up as a Force Ghost a lot, and we're going to see Luke redeem himself from his, depression or whatever you want to call it.
From his failure.
Yeah,
like,
from
he failed,
his failure.
Yeah. But instead of getting back up and going, okay, I have to address this enormously difficult thing that's gone on with a person who is, I'm the last person they're ever going to listen to, is, where he fled from that and went, look, we've all just been messing it up. We need to stop this. It's him coming back and saying, okay, no, I have to address this and fix this. And there's no way they're going to end this without Luke finding some sort of conclusion to that.
Yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily, that's what I'm saying is redemption could be a conclusion to that, but the gray area also can be. If we get Kylo Ren to a point where he's not as bad and there is hope for the future, and we set up this idea that, we're going to have had a year of First Order rule of Hux and Kylo Ren fighting over the First Order here.
Yeah.
That's definitely enough time to set up some difference between how Hux wants to lead the First Order and how Kylo does, and to show us the many, many, many moments that Kylo Ren has had of wavering on whether or not they're doing the right thing here, showing up in the way he treats people as a ruler. That if he is actually setting this up as, and I feel kind of dirty saying this, as a functioning fascist rule, where yes, it's fascist and yes, it's horrible, but if we're not, but we're allowing people to cross the border and leave if they want to, like we're not shutting everything off and keeping everyone in North Korea style, or people are not our prisoners, and people who are willing to give up freedoms for greater security can come to the First Order, and meanwhile people who aren't willing to give up those freedoms and would rather have that dangerous chaos where people are dying left and right can go to the New Republic if they want to be that dumb. Yeah, we'll do that. Like, I could see them getting there. And again, it's complicated for Star Wars, but Last Jedi was freaking complicated for Star Wars too. They're not afraid of being complicated.
But I feel like that is a big philosophical discussion to have in a 2.5 hour movie.
Yes, it is. I think they could do it. Especially and going further afield from that, it's like we've got a villain who is conflicted about his villainy. Mm-hmm. We've got a hero who has a functioning relationship with our villain. We have another hero who has specifically said, my job from here on out is to help this villain become better. We also have one of our other heroes is a former First Order stormtrooper who knows tons of people on the other side and has every potential reason to go, yeah, they're not all evil. Like, yeah, he, like, his last arc was coming to the conclusion that I have to be actively working against what they're doing, but his arc in the next one could totally be him coming to a point of, yeah, I did and I do, but also, all y'all need to back up a bit because I know these people. Like, there is not...
That would be really interesting to see some of the stormtroopers mentioned in some of the books that he trained with, that, like, by name, and by that I mean their designation, yeah.
Yeah.
But that would be really cool to see them.
Well, and I mean, come on, think about this. I would love to see. So our last movie was Rose telling Finn over and over, like, no, you need to be in on this fight. And then when he got in on this fight going, okay, but we don't want you to die over it. Like, back it up. We need you here. And have the next movie going, all right, have Rose going, okay, we're fighting them. And have Finn going, whoa. Maybe this isn't the best. Like, have Finn reining in Rose for the next movie and teaching her some lessons that she needs
Chris,
to
stop
learn.
Making so much sense.
I knew if I made Rose the one who's wrong, you'd like that.
No, that wasn't at all. But but that would be a really interesting Parallels.
Now, we also have one of our triumvirate of heroes here, whose entire arc of the last movie was learning that war at all costs is a bad thing. We need to learn to rein it in and save lives instead of spending them, which is kind of what this gray arc would be building to, of saying, hey, maybe war in general is not a great way to save lives instead of spending them. Maybe allowing horrible people to be somewhat horrible and trying to rein them in peacetime is usually a better option. Like, that's usually the approach the real world takes, because it's better. Like, it fails sometimes. And when it fails catastrophically. It fails World War II Hitler. It fails Kim Jong-un. Like, yeah, the bad examples are really bad, and that's why we're so frightened about them. That's why we love our good versus evil narratives, that we're always going to wipe those out. But realistically, sometimes, a lot of the time, most of the time, it's a bit better to go, hey, we're not going to come in there with our jackboots and stomp you into the ground because you're horrible. We're going to use diplomacy. We're going to back it up. We're going to try and resolve things peacefully. Even Putin does that. I mean, come on. The man is basically a living Bond villain. And even he does this.
Yeah.
And I mean, I say that as someone who constantly reads Russian news, who sees the other side of the propaganda and all of this stuff, and still is just like, no, Putin's horrible. Even plenty of Russians know this. Like, yeah. But even he usually, and then again, this is a very vague, very broad stroke, but even he generally goes for more peaceful solutions than violence. He also exploits that sometimes, in the same way that Hitler did with appeasements. But you know, there's a reason we do that in real life. And it is better, and and they're definitely set up some potential for each of these characters to come at that from a different approach. For Poe to be saying, wait a minute, we need to be saving lives. For Finn to be going, wait a minute, I know these people. For Rey to be going, wait a minute, I don't want to kill this guy, I want him to be better. And for Kylo to go, wait a minute, I freaking hate Hux, I don't want to be that. Like, dude, this guy is a rabid dog. We've constantly described him this way. We have spittle flying from his lips as he gives a Hitler speech. Like, that guy's the bad guy here. Kylo Ren's the one in control. There's definitely some potential for Hux to be the one that goes off the rail. Kylo pulls him in without going, I'm joining the good guys. But I agree that he's too much.
I'm going to laugh come December, when everything that Chris has just said is what happens. I will be just blown away.
Well, that is one thing that I did want to mention also, is that I can now see how that would happen, Chris, when I couldn't at the start of this episode, but
definitely.
It's still not necessarily there is plenty to say that the other things could happen. Disney's concern for the bottom line is definitely a motivating factor here. The Star Wars legacy of redemption is definitely a motivating thing. The meta-narrative of we don't want to kill these people is definitely a thing. The fact that we've already done redemption over and over again is definitely a thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of
the fact that audiences are going to have a lot of trouble with the attitude of we're not redeeming him, but we're not killing him either. Oh yeah, that's a hard sell.
Yeah,
and the fact that we've already done one hard sell is definitely a motivating factor. But again, that one was far more well received than most people who didn't like it want to acknowledge.
The too long didn't read of this is can see it going this way. It may or may not.
My money is on it.
I'm not sure.
I'm not putting more than like $5 on it, but that's where my money's at.
Ross, where's your money at?
I think
$100. Just kidding.
Yeah, no. I think they redeem but kill him. They redeem but
so
kill him.
So you think a Vader thing?
I think it'll be. I think it'll be a Vader.
I don't want it.
I will go the other way around, I guess, and he either dies or lives unredeemed.
But you know what? I think if they do go the route of redeeming then killing him, I think there will be Rey will come to a conclusion that a different balance conclusion, right?
There's got to be some sort of balance.
They have to address the balance, yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, but Kylo's sins may or may not be redeemable, depending on. Well, no, okay, they're basically irredeemable at this point.
He pushed the button on 5 planets being destroyed, right. So I guess technically that was Hux,
and again, like I was talking about the meta narrative of where I'm uncomfortable with what they're suggesting there too. I'm also rather uncomfortable with them suggesting that someone who rose to power in the way that Kylo Ren did is ever going to stop being that way. Like history is not exactly replete with examples of people who went, "Yep, I am going to make a bloody march to control of everything," and then I'm going to go, "Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
Now that I've got control, we'll just back it off."
Yeah.
Like, I mean, seriously, can you think of a single example?
No.
Like, that's not how power works. So,
And that's especially not how people who get power in a very bloody way work.
yeah, exactly. And so it's suggesting that, like, I like the idea of going, hey, peace can be more important than our differences. That's a great message. The message of, hey, just because they're a tyrant doesn't mean they're going to keep being a tyrant. Historically speaking, is not a great one to be spreading. So,
Yeah.
That's a hard sell.
Man.
My other question along that line, though, is what does strike that balance that Rey would need to have?
I got nothing other than having Kylo keep living. Like, because I mean, I feel like that's kind of the idea here, is we have to learn to work within this balance. And yes, they're horrible. But if they're going to be more horrible, we're going to be more good to balance them out. Not we are going to wipe them out, but at the same time, I totally believe that there are times when those bad guys need to be wiped out. Like, real life is complex. And so any approach that they take to this is going to have to at least address some of those complexities. You can't redeem him without addressing... Like, I will not be happy, at least, with a redemption arc that does not address the fact that any redemption for Kylo Ren has to take the form of a minimum of lifetime incarceration, and then him dying and coming back as a Force ghost and being incarcerated as a Force ghost. Like, wakes up in a Force prison next to Force ghost Luke. Like this dude needs, like, if there's redemption, it's not something that's going to be easy for him.
Here we go. There's an after credit scene of Force ghost Kylo waking up amongst Force fire and Force brimstone.
Purgatory.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, then this very problem is the reason for the popularity of the redemption equals death trope.
Right.
Is because if we want we want to acknowledge that redemption is great and possible for everyone, but the actual substance of what redemption and repentance and becoming a better person means in real life, that does not make for a really solid ending for a movie. Like, it's a long, drawn-out process, and that even if you manage to make a story about it, is not going to be a blockbuster. You know, it's going to be an art house. Like, oh yeah, it's going to be the book that gets taught in schools to students because it's so important, and you all need to understand that this is the reality of things. Because there's so many people that have this attitude of I can't become better, and even if they become better, I think that's part of why for some people suicide is a preferable option to actually stepping out and being a better person gradually day by day, because they've been told all their lives that death will redeem you. And I doubt there are not many people that are actually going through that, the thought process of, well, Star Wars taught me that death is okay. Death will make me better. But nevertheless, it definitely has some sort of influence.
Society,
I don't know.
Who knows? It'll be fun come December. Just a little preview, listeners. In December, we're going to do an episode 9 prediction episode of just everything we think is going to happen.
Put our money on the table.
Fun. Yeah.
Which, can we do more than what we've done tonight?
Oh, yeah. No, this is just talking about Kylo Ren.
I mean, and obviously Kylo is very central to all of this, so it's going to influence.
We say this episode was just about Kylo Ren, but we've talked most of it, I think, about the First Order at large.
But here's the things that we can discuss, too, is, okay, what happens to Hux? What happens to Phasma if she's still around, or whether or not she actually died?
Yeah.
Have there been any rumors about whether or not Gwendolyn Christie's been on set? I don't know.
Actually.
So anyway... what happens to Poe? Where does Poe end up at? What happens with the Resistance? Where's the Resistance at the beginning? What happens to Rose? What happens to Finn? Who the heck does Finn end up with? Who does Rey end up with? Does anyone end up with anyone?
Does Rey have parents? What's her last name?
Yeah.
Is
Rey
she
does
a
not have
Skywalker?
parents. We've already established that. We don't need to revisit. But
yeah. No, it'll be fun. We'll
there's plenty, like, especially if we get more nitty and gritty. It's like, okay, we are going to make predictions about everything. How many porgs are we going to see on screen in this movie? Prediction now.
Yep.
Like, we've got plenty to talk about.
Yeah.
Expect that.
What
listeners.
happens to Chewie? Come on.
See, that is a good question.
It is. Freaking Chewie, man.
And
the man deserves more respect.
We need to stop now, or I think we're going to end up going all night.
Yeah.
So.
Oh man. Well, we is that it then? Are we talked out for that? Or at least I
feel like I'm probably going to start circling a lot.
Yeah.
On any of it. But.
Well, and that's the thing is, I as much as I do like your gray ending, I still believe my way. I understand your grievances.
No.
I still think it's going to be...
I could see it happening. And that's the thing, too, is, like, part of me wants to go, no, I trust these people. Like, they proved I could trust them. But then I get into this, like, no, I trust Rian Johnson to be able to address that, whether or not he does it well. I don't necessarily trust J.J. Abrams to address that, to even attempt to address that. Maybe not. Like, I wouldn't say he wouldn't try. I wouldn't say he wouldn't be capable of that. Just don't know if I trust him to either try it in the first place or do it well if it's done. You know, and then you get into the complexities. Like, I think I told you guys about the Batman comics I've been reading. So I picked up the current run of Batman comics, which is written by Tom King, and started with the DC Universe Rebirth and everything. And I read 7 volumes of this. And so I read the first 3 volumes and was like, oh yeah, this is okay. Like, I got some stuff that's confusing because I didn't read the whole Rebirth arc and know what comes before this, but oh well. And had some stuff where I was like, oh, that's interesting. I like that, this, the other. Not bad, you know. And then I picked up volume 4, The War of Jokes and Riddles, and I adored it. And I was just like, holy crap, now I see what he's been building to. That was so well done. I was floored. I'd recommend it to all of you, but I guarantee you, it's if I recommend this to you and you all go pick it up, this will be like The Last Jedi. Half of you will hate it. At least half of you will hate it. Which is actually far higher numbers than The Last Jedi got, but... none of you could see my smirk when I said that, but I was deliberately not looking at Kylo when I said it and smirking.
Now I know how Ross feels getting constantly needled.
Not fun, is it?
Anyway.
Is it?
But I adored War of Jokes and Riddles.
Pain just gives me strength, Ross. I'm on the dark side, remember?
Yeah.
I finished that and I was like, oh man, I respect this writer. And then I read volume 5, Rules of Engagement, which was freaking hilarious. Like, War of Jokes and Riddles was dark. It was just like, ow, painful. I need to go hug my wife and and play with my sons. But you know, it was meaty stuff, and but it was really well done. And then I picked up volume 5, and it was freaking hilarious from just start to finish. Like said, like there was some nice depth. There's some nice, you know, character development and all this stuff. But it was also just so funny. I mean, it was Batman and his fiancée Catwoman going to deal with his ex Talia al Ghul, which was just all sorts of difficulty and awkward and everything, but also some meaning, and it was great. And then the second half of this volume is Batman and Catwoman going on a double date with Superman and Lois Lane at a county fair, where the county fair is having a themed superhero night, and so the superheroes show up in their civvies and they're like, no, sorry, you can't get in. You have to be dressed as a superhero, and y'all ain't superheroes. And Bruce Wayne just sitting there like, grr. And then Catwoman being like, well, you do have costumes, and we do have those. And then being like, whoa, what? No. And her just being like, just you put on his, he puts on you. You don't look like yourselves. It'll be fine. And that's literally what they do. And it's absurd.
That's amazing.
They pulled it off.
That's
so Batman dresses as Catwoman?
Batman dresses as... that would have been
Batman.
great.
Oh.
I wish. But no, Batman dresses as Superman and Superman dresses as Batman.
Oh, gotcha.
Lois Lane dresses as Catwoman, and then Catwoman dresses in Lois Lane's dress and basically just seduces her way into the place.
Of course she does.
Despite not being in costume. And then, but yeah, it's just this ongoing, it's all these discussions that they're having and them getting to know each other, mostly getting to know Catwoman, and it was awesome. Like, it was awesome. It was absurd and it was silly, but it was also hilarious and fun. And I finished that volume and I went, anyone who can pull off the skin gratingly painful quality pain of The War of Jokes and Riddles and then follow it up with that much hilarity, anyone who's that versatile, I need to go pick up everything this man has read. Fun fact, incidentally. Written, yes. Anything he has written. Fun fact, incidentally. Tom King interned at DC and Marvel, stepped away from comics for about 7 years, had a career somewhere else, and then returned to comics. Care to guess what his career was for those 7 years?
Film writing?
I have no idea.
Working for CIA counterterrorism.
Whoa!
Yeah,
Dang.
like
Hardcore!
I want to meet this guy and just ask him, how did that happen? How did you intern at DC and Marvel coming out of college and then end up in CIA counterterrorism and then come back to comics? Like, fascinating. Anyway, I digress. But yeah, so I read that and I was just like, holy cow. I am floored. I want to read everything this man writes. I trust him to do whatever happens. It's part of the reason I picked this up is because it was building towards Batman and Catwoman's wedding, and I'm like, I doubt they're even going to actually get married, but I have trouble believing that they could pull that off in a satisfactory manner, build up to this, and then not do it. But after reading all that, I was like, man, I trust this man to do it. I'm looking forward to this. He did not. It was not a satisfactory conclusion for me at all. It was quite a disappointment. And that happens, no big, but that's what I'm getting at here is I have been burned this way too many times to just go wholesale. I love what Star Wars is doing. I trust them to do more. Oh man, it could go any direction. Like, even if, like, I want to give them the benefit of the doubt and assume they're going to do a good job with whatever they do, but that is not a given by any means.
Yeah.
Even the most competent people will throw duds.
Yeah, I feel like, so the seasons of Lost that JJ was actually working on were good seasons, right? It was after he left that when it got real weird. I feel like he can do it, but I think he's also put a lot on his own plate. Because there was a press release a while ago talking about how he had said that this movie is going to tie up all 3 trilogies. You're getting... There are things that
could
are
also just be
all
blustering and building hype.
I feel like that's a really bad thing if they can't deliver with this community.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, let's be frank. A good chunk of this community is never going to please no matter what they deliver. So that's always rough. The more you bluster it, but yeah, it's up in the air. And especially when you look at it as like, not only are we trying to wrap up 9 films worth of stuff in this one, there's 8 films we've already done, wrap them all up in this 9th film with these new characters and leave us with a positive tone for the vast universe of Star Wars stuff that Disney wants to do going forward.
Yeah.
But we also have to do this with one of our central actors having passed away and working her into this film in a satisfactory way through
that's going to be
old
difficult.
footage and whatever else they do. Like, that is a huge handicap.
Yeah.
That's that's like saying, I'm going to do this amazing tightrope walk that nobody has ever done. It's going to be beautiful. And then, so you get shot in your leg and you're like, oh crap. Well, I'm still going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
And it's going to be, and it's just like, oh god, really? You're still going to try it after the heal, man? Take some time. Recast her. Do something. But no. Which again, nobody's going to be happy with recasting her either. But I actually might have preferred that, but.
See,
it's a rough.
I would have preferred her just disappearing and it not being addressed rather than recasting.
No. It's all rough. It's all rough. There are no good options.
There was no good option. Yeah.
As soon as she passed away, it was just like, oh well,
crap.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's already so much stacked against this. There's already so much difficulty that I'm just hoping to come out of that going, well, okay.
Managing expectations. Good job, Chris.
Yeah, that's my highest hopes here. Well, no, my hopes are for them to lay out something that's just gonna, I don't care whether it's redemption or death or something in between. My hopes are that I'm gonna go, oh, I didn't think of that, but yeah, that does work. Oh, yeah. My expectations are to go in and come out and say, no,
I have
right. Like, I'm
what
not
I feel
pissed.
are unreasonably high hopes. I hope that episode 9 makes me hate Last Jedi less.
I think that's less difficult than you think. I mean, I've been doing this for months now.
Yeah.
I know. It's true.
And it's we may want to revisit this after April 12th when the teaser comes out.
If the teaser comes out. I hope it will. I think it will. But
it's got to.
I know, right?
They can't do it any later than that.
No, if there's a trailer that comes out for it, we will definitely do a Nerf nugget.
Yeah. I'm so nervous for that, guys. I didn't even watch all the trailers for Last Jedi.
I didn't either because the first one totally turned me off to the movie.
Yeah, I didn't. I watched the first one and went, well, geez, they just spoiled the entire thing and it all looks predictably cliche. And then I went into the movie and went, whoa, that was... Well, that did not spoil the whole thing and was not as predictably cliche as I expected. So I apologize, trailer person. Yeah, but...
well, I think that's probably a good place to call it quits for today.
I think so.
What do we think?
Yep.
Alrighty. Well, we hope you enjoyed our rambling, meandering through this discussion. Do let us know what your thoughts are.
Yeah.
You can do so on Twitter at More Civilized. We'd love to hear from you there. And also join our Facebook group, More Civilized Podcast. You can have a longer discussion than 240 characters about this on there, which we'd love to hear it from you guys. And put your money on the table, people. Let's find out what your bets are. Kylo, redeemed, yes, no? If yes, how? Yeah, come play along, guys.
Oh, one thing we didn't talk about, I think.
What?
Reylo.
Oh, we'll talk about that.
Yeah, that's the prediction.
Prediction episode.
Okay. We have the episode. Yeah, we're gonna discuss shipping among other things. So.
Yeah,
Yep.
I mean, it does kind of pertain to this.
Discussion. No, we're done, Ross. I have started the outro. We are done. Move along.
Okay, very well.
This is not the discussion you're looking for.
Yep, exactly.
Move along.
You know, I was looking for a way to keep going. You found it first. Good job, Chris. All right. So speaking of the Facebook group.
Yep.
This week's shout out goes to John Smith, who discovered America. Oh, no, wait.
No. Just discovering an underage girl in America. But.
Yeah. Ross, you failed so completely.
Someone didn't get the joke.
No, Ross. I, the historian, completely understood your terrible joke and how bad it was. Okay, go.
Fine. Yeah. Sorry, John. I didn't mean to make light of your name, but it was just the first thing I thought of. He posted the
Wingapo.
His name is my name.
Now we're just making fun of Ross.
It's all gone so poorly.
Start over, Ross.
It's gone adequately, let's be honest.
No, I'm leaving all that in. We're not cutting that. It was too good. So he posted a cinematic trailer for one of the expansions for the Old Republic. I've really, really loved all the trailers and cinematics that have come out of this game because they've all been amazing. But the particular version that he posted, someone has put a call-out box on top of it that says, when a 7-year-old Star Wars game looks better than the new movies. And John asks what our thoughts were on that comment with the trailer. Both Kyler and I commented on, I think there's even another one since the last time I looked. Oh, no, 2 of them are mine. Never mind.
Ross is looking at, who's this Ross guy? He's on top of it.
Hey, man, yeah, he's... Look at that.
You mean this Charles guy?
That fine-looking fella, yeah. So it's an awesome, beautiful, beautiful trailer. Should I just tell people to go read it, or should I talk about it? Just go read it. Go to the Facebook
Go engage,
page,
for heaven's sakes.
And tell us what you think.
I didn't comment on it because you all know what I think already. So,
yeah. Anyway, you can talk with me on Twitter at Mr_R_star.
Please let us know if there's anything you would like to hear us talk about, any ideas you have for episodes that could be a lot of fun. We would love to have some of that work done for us. And please share it with us. Also, do not forget what we plugged at the beginning here, May the 4th.
Be with you.
Yeah, if you are here in Utah or able to get here in Utah, and more specifically into Utah County and right here smack in the middle-ish, get down to the Dragon's Keep gaming and comic store in Spanish Fork. We will be there Saturday, probably afternoon. We'll let you know. There will be an event on Facebook. So if you want to know more about it, get on Facebook, get in that group, get in that event, and we'll be getting together for some in-person fun.
Yep. There it is.
Please do remember as well that the Force should be with you all.
Always.
I'm Anna Graves, and thank you for listening to a more civilized podcast.
Well, I'm sure we all agree that the movie we need to watch there is the Clone Wars movie.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Chris, if you could sit a little closer too, I think we're... Thanks, Chris. Thanks for
just giving us all kinds of fodder for the episode.
I just want to make Ross listen to things that are unpleasant to have a microphone on.
Yeah, moment of silence for sound.
For our dignity from last episode.
We had dignity?
Whoa! I don't know where that came from.
I want that.
I've been practicing my.
Whoa! I don't know where that came from.
I've been practicing my force choke on Ross.
Yeah, apparently.
Finally got one through.
Or the force
it was
sudden
just a
onset
little
pneumonia.
One.
Yeah.